I am angry. I'm angry because this bullshit movie's a lying piece of crap, and I don't want to give it any more publicity than it's already accrued. I had a few people point VHS out to me after I uploaded a video a while back about my love of the format, and more broadly about how choosing the format to present your film in is equally as important as, say, the direction or the cinematography. And having read a basic plot synopsis for this film, I decided to take the plunge on it, as I thought I was hoping I could present it to you guys as a shining example of a more mainstream title that had placed its format quite literally front and centre as a driving force to the film's reason to exist. And when it turned up, I put it into my DVD player and it proceeded to kick me swiftly in the nuts multiple times. Here's why. VHS is an anthology film, much like Creepshow or Trick or Treat. The idea is that we focus on multiple tales, each handled by a different director or writer. In fact, there's 10 directors on this film and 11 writers. Normally this would have sent me immediately to my panic room as being a glaring sign of terrible quality. But with this being an anthology film, I kind of allowed this to get a bit of a free pass because of the premise. More on that later though. The main directors for the feature were Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and David Bruckner, both of which have a much of a muchness history in this genre. They're predominantly involved in low-budget indie horror movies, and until recently neither have had anything released that would have been particularly of note. Though Bruckner has quite recently been given a chance to direct a couple of episodes of the upcoming Creepshow TV series. And that's probably the other biggest credit that they hold between them. As for the main writers, well, that's split between Simon Barrett, who's been responsible for writing some of the bigger mainstream horror films to have come out of late, including You're Next, the soft reboot of the Blair Witch Project, and many others, so I had to assume going into this that there would at least be a quality behind their writing, because the main writer's been working in mainstream Hollywood for years at this point, and continues to do so. I feel it should also be mentioned that Brad Miska is credited as having formally come up with the concept for this movie. It looks like this series is the only thing he's ever worked on, and I think, to be honest, that he's only credited on other films because they're sequels to this one that share the same concept and format. So far, so mixed. VHS opens in VHS format and is presented as a found footage film. In it we follow a group of thugs who are open to petty crime, burglary and sexual harassment in order to make a bit of cash to keep rolling. They're scumbags and a little messed up. And after getting acquainted with them briefly, we're then informed through the found footage that they've been offered a deal that'll pay well enough for them to have quite a bit of downtime. A client's contacted them to ask if they can break into an old man's house and steal a VHS tape for them. The gang doesn't know what's on the tape, but the client informs them they'll know which tape it is when they see it. Naturally, they agree. They head over to the property, and from there they encounter two immediate problems. Number one, the old man who owns the house is dead, and number two, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of VHS tapes in his house, all unlabelled and none of them looking particularly stand out. So the gang start rifling through the tapes and playing the odd one or two. Somehow, one of the gang members sets the video camera they're recording on up to line in the VHS tape footage to the camera from the VCR, and we as viewers sit and watch the content as it plays through the video camera, cutting back to the gang at the end of each tale as they continue to look for the right tape. As this is supposed to be a found footage movie, emphasis dramatically decreases on the consistent clear direction and cinematography, and drastically increases on acting ability and realism. Found footage movies rely heavily on keeping you fully in the moment, and as a result, while you can shoot the film a lot messier and still get away with it, one bad performance, shoddy effect or poor edit can literally ruin this kind of a film. As a result, it's one of the few genres that's easy to shoot, hard to do well, especially in light of other much better found footage movies like The Last Broadcast, the WNUF Halloween Special, or to a lesser extent, Ghostwatch. So for this review, I'm just going to be talking about realism and things that are amiss. There's no soundtrack present in the film at all, pretty much barring background music, which is often second fiddle to the actual dramatics of the scene, so it's not something I really need to talk about here, and I'll be honest, the lack of an OST is the least of this film's troubles. Before I fully begin, I'm just going to pop this right here to remind you that this movie is called VHS, and it's supposed to be presented in VHS quality. So, with that done, we'll begin. This one revolves around a group of guys going out to try and hook up with some women while secretly filming them to make a gonzo-esque porno without their consent for profit. The entire sketch is filmed through a pair of digital spy glasses and is presented off the VHS tape as low-quality digital footage. Anyway, long story short, they end up getting a couple of girls back to the room, things get pretty hot and heavy, but one of the girls isn't as she first appears and pretty much picks off all the guys before transforming into some kind of demon and flying off. This one's pretty bad as they use a weird crackly digital artifacting effect to mask edits or to jump cut in time, which, well, spy cameras would never do that, and VHS tapes physically can't do that, so they failed twice here. The acting's a little wooden too, so I really couldn't get fully invested in this one. Demon Girl's kinda cool, but again, it's just a hard fail right out of the gate for me. It's messy, unfocused, they go too cinematic in places where they shouldn't, which makes it too obvious what the filmmakers want you focusing on, and when they're not overcompensating on some scenes, they're undercompensating by throwing the camera around and generally being overly messy. Big fail. This one's shot on a digital Handycam. And again, it looks nothing like VHS quality, which is a terrible attention to detail because, and I really feel the need to remind you all as much as I can, all of these acts are supposed to be presented in VHS quality. Anyway, this one is a couple going on a road trip. It's incredibly inane, but arguably one of the better examples of an actual found footage sketch. Literally, we follow a couple as they go holidaying, stop at landmarks, etc. But then at one point the camera comes on in the middle of the night and neither of the couple are holding it. Instead, we're introduced to a mystery third person who steals $100 from the boyfriend's wallet before we cut back to the vacation footage. There's more quite realistic and boring holiday footage again before it cuts to another night, where everyone's asleep and the third person randomly kills the boyfriend before it's revealed that the girlfriend is actually in on this and that the third person is actually her lesbian lover. They needed the boyfriend out of the picture so they could make a run for it. So whereas the first act had a sloppy and awkward set of hard edits to help speed up the narrative, this one actually suffers the opposite problem. It's a slow and painful watch with little to no payoff. It left me nonplussed, and it was at this point that I started to grow annoyed that the film wasn't actually utilising the titular format. This was better than the first act, barely, but that's about it. Act 3 is once again presented using digital Handycam. And it was here that I really lost my patience. It follows a group of friends as they go up to the woods to have a party weekender, only there's something in the woods, or there may not be? This one's the stupidest and worst explained of all of these. Basically, there's a killer that no one can see, as far as I'm aware, physically, but who shows up on the Handycam footage as an outline made up of digital artifacting. He picks off most of the friends, and then it's revealed that one of the friends has been to these woods previously and was one of the only survivors of the last batch of killings. That, and she's lured her other friends up here now with the express intention of catching the killer and killing him. This all backfires spectacularly, but the whole thing is so lazily executed and it cribs so heavily from Slender Man that I really couldn't wait for this one to end as soon as possible. It's one of the most staged acts out of all of these featured. It looks like a badly made short student film rather than a mainstream found footage movie that was actually released in actual cinemas. It had all the subtlety of a concrete slab to the nads and was probably twice as painful. Next. Fucking Skype. If you thought the concept was threadbare to begin with, you ain't seen shit yet. So, this entirely takes place through multiple logged video chats online. How and why they ended up on a VHS tape in an old man's house, God knows. Frankly, I'm past the point of caring at this point. Anyway, it's between a long-distance couple where the girlfriend has recently moved into a new house and weird things start to happen and she thinks it's haunted, and then we find out that it's actually haunted, or it may not be, as it's later revealed that her long-distance boyfriend actually is a lot closer than she thinks. There's a weird cutting scene and then we move on, with the implication being that the guy's been catfishing multiple women to harvest organs or fetuses to feed ghost children? At this point I was both lost and too desensitised to honestly really care about getting to the bottom of this one. We've reached desolation cinema at this point. Just bloody awful. Just something I'd point out before I move on, there's a really weird reoccurring theme in this movie about sex tapes. Every act of this film more or less has some variation of, do you want to do a sex tape, or we're currently doing a sex tape, or I'm going to do a sex tape whether you consent to it or not, both in the film's main plot and in the subplots. As the VHS tape they're filming the exploration of the house for appears to have previously been a non-consented sex tape between one of the gang members and his girlfriend. This is the only funny one, really, and I'd say that very weakly, because the girl in this tape spots that he's recording her really early on in proceedings, and as a result there are random points where the gang members have stopped the recording, where we get brief glimpses of the tape that was underneath, featuring the couple arguing and the scumbag boyfriend's dick move tactics falling apart, before we cut back to the newer footage. That was amusing and quite well done. They absolutely run the joke into the ground beyond this point though, as they repeat that same gag over and over again. It's almost like none of the writers actually spoke to each other and that they all thought they were being really clever to do the sex tape joke. Anyway, just thought I'd mention it, as it's really weird and a tad uncomfortable after the first couple of jibes at it. It's really not very well done. Anyway, on to the last act. VHS quality! I don't know whether this and the main plot's VHS-ness is legitimate tape stock or shitty VHS filtering in post-production, but at this point I've been messed around to the point where I'm just happy it vaguely resembles what it should. Good old analogue tape quality. And better still, this one's actually old footage. I forgot to mention that the previous 4 acts all look to be set within the last 24 months of the gang breaking into the house. This is set in 1998, on Halloween night. And it involves a gang of friends going to a Halloween party where they may or may not have ended up in the wrong house, where they may or may not have accidentally stumbled upon a group of angry Satanists trying to summon the devil. This is what this 2-hour movie should have been. It's great. They do the lasagna technique at first, where older recordings bleed through due to people having fast forward rather than recorded over the bits that are already on the tape previously. This quickly establishes all the characters, and they utilise the grainy and dark VHS quality really well to help mask slightly ropey effects and emphasise the horror elements. It's really atmospheric, and what's more, it actually feels really believable. There are minimal cuts, and when they do, they're tonally accurate. There's near constant character development and plot movement, and it ends in a satisfying way that felt good. This one made me really sad because it showed me what the previous hour and 45 of this film could have been had they not pissed it up the wall. It's still not perfect, but it's as good as what I was initially expecting. Equally, the main gang sections are all mostly filmed in VHS quality. And although the whole film is presented in 16:9, a decision I am choosing to dock this movie points for, again, the choice of medium feels welcome, it feels natural, and it makes the scary moments feel a lot scarier and look a lot better. It was a constant reminder throughout the film of what this movie could have been with a little bit more attention to detail and a bit more dedication to the format. The cast are for the most part believable, and it ends about as well as it could have ended. But 1 out of 5 acts and an alright set of host segments married to an acceptable close is frankly dog shit, and absolutely failed to redeem this film for me. VHS was released in 2013 on DVD and Blu-ray by Momentum Pictures. It was also given a very rare VHS release as well. As a film, it's a failure. Extras include an alternate upbeat ending to the final sketch that would have made me hate the final sketch had they gone that way, and a 5-minute Skype interview with the film's main writer, which was about as insightful as an OXO cube. There's a couple of behind-the-scenes docs on here as well, but I just couldn't be arsed with them honestly, and neither should you be. VHS, in my opinion, is a film that failed to meet its potential. On every level, it absolutely just misses the mark in delivering both its title and its premise. What should have been a brilliantly clever experiment into horror on VHS as a format, using the nature of the format to maximise scares and allow a greater understanding of the film's characters through buried footage and the lasagna technique, is instead here replaced with 4 acts that have the absolute audacity to pretend they're shot on tape when they're just clearly not, and one that's pretty decent but not worth the 2-hour runtime. Had some of the main plot and the last act been recut into a 15 to 30 minute short film, I'd have absolutely loved this movie. As it stands, I only have bile and deep resentment for it. And it's basically made it nigh impossible for anyone else now to explore the idea of VHS anthology series within the mainstream film industry. It's a sloppy, poorly cut together, unrealistic, badly written, badly acted, and ultimately disappointing film, which left me terribly cold, ruined a movie night, and left me desperately wanting to put a real horror film on tape. If you have any love for horror on VHS as a format, you will avoid this film at all costs. It hurt me deeply, and not only will I never watch it again, I'll endeavour to never speak about it again. Fucking abysmal cinema. Consider me formally insulted.